Sven Nykvist, there's a name that makes people smile. You mention his name with film people, who'd be the only ones actually who know about him, people interested in cinema, and there's just a glint, you know, of appreciation. They're very fond of the man, and everybody likes him. And he's an old, you know, an old charmer, besides being, of course, one of the great cinematographers in the history of the cinema, and a partner, certainly for the second half of Bergman's career.
When you talk about Ingmar's genius and Ingmar's enormous importance for film, I don't think you can do that without talking about Sven Nykvist.
Ta ut, fru Rosenberg. Jag vill tala med mannen Hedblom.
Jan, kom med! Jan! 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 Nej! Släpp! Släpp! Jan! 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 Jan!
He had been an assistant to the cameraman, Gunnar Fischer, who never gets the credit he should. Fischer was fabulous in those early Bergman masterpieces. But he and Bergman was going in another direction now, and Gunnar couldn't follow him. He was more in the old system, tremendous structuring, carefully planned shots and all that sort of thing. Bergman wanted a looser thing, more available light, all sorts of stuff. And I think probably the relationship between those two was closer and more intuitive, because by nature, Sven Nykvist was more daring, more, shall we say, willing to put his own opinion or his own convictions out there in the open.
Sven was very obedient to interpret Ingmar's intentions. I think it was a good relation. They gave and take, and then if Ingmar was irritated, he could take it out on Sven or on me or somebody who knew him very well. And then Sven could be very grunchy and say, "Nedrans," which is the worst swear word he knows. It means nothing, but nedrans. But he's such a sweet person, you know.
Sven has a whole series of anecdotes about Bergman and how Bergman tested him at the beginning. When he hired him, there's this whole story. I won't recount the whole thing, but Bergman was saying, "I tell you to do this, but you felt it was wrong to do it. It wasn't the way you, as a craftsman, would proceed. I tell you, but if I told you again, what would you do?" He said, "I'd tell you again," but Bergman was becoming furious, "But you're working with me, and I still want you to do it. I'd still have to tell you again." Bergman's reply, "You're hard."
Jag vet inte var jag är någonstans. Var det här för en plats?
Kan ni inte hjälpa mig lite?
If you also have a cinematographer like Sven Nykvist, who sometimes say, you know, when I'm filming, suddenly I can't see anything because my eye in the camera is crying, so I can't see anything. It's wonderful. You don't need to be on the stage. You have these two wonderful people.
The lovely thing about two artists, if you wish, working together over a period of time, they intuitively begin to know exactly what the other is doing and so on, and they don't even have to tell them, you know, and there's more and more freedom. And this definitely happened between Bergman and Sven Nykvist.
There are times when I don't know where one takes over and is more than the other. They have given each other so much, and I must say that Sven Nykvist, to me, he is really a genius. What he can see with light, what he can see with that camera, what Sven Nykvist can do in terms of operating a camera, because in all of Ingmar's films he's not only the cinematographer, he's also the operator.
There are some monster shots in the film. I remember it was all the actors were sitting around the table, and the cinematographer Sven Nykvist was in the middle of the table, and it was dialogue like that from different parts of the table, and he is a genius operator also, so he had to follow there with the camera, and it was exact. And that shot I remember very well, and it works very well when I see the film also.
Sven Nykvist doesn't know about Steadicam almost. He is a Steadicam, and so he will float around that dinner table, and because the next line is going to be there, he will float back, and then he will stand there while that person has those lines, and then he will float this way because then that person is going to have a line. Not like these new films, you know, where you go like this and you never know where to be and the camera never really knows. Sven Nykvist knows what is happening in that scene, and Sven Nykvist knows how long he stays there, what the last line of that person is, and why he should quickly move there, because then comes the line there. No improvisation. It's just a genius who is a painter with a camera, painter with light.
Elisabeth.
Du ska hälsa till vår lilla pojke att mamma snart kommer tillbaka. Mamma har varit sjuk, men hon längtar efter sin lilla pojke. Ska du komma ihåg att köpa någon leksak åt honom? Det ska vara en present från mamma, glöm inte det.
Vet du, jag har en så stor ömhet för dig.
Sven, he described the whole atmosphere on the island when they were shooting. Persona, how everybody was going crazy, including Sven, because Sven became sort of the father confessor. The two women were, all their feelings about all of this. And then Sven was laughing, and he says, what do you think about me? I was going crazy. I was in love with both of them. I couldn't help it. I was just photographing them, and it was all, there was this kind of crazy thing going on through the whole. And there he was, the professional, capturing these two faces and making studies of them. You know, a dream for Bergman, the total connivance of these two to allow this great cameraman to make these two faces shine as, well, what film have any of us ever seen where two women just shine all the way through the film? And in a way, it's a kind of a fashion show almost of close-ups of human faces, two extraordinary human faces.
I have worked with him 3 times as a director. I am so grateful that I could work with such a painter, such a magician within film. And what Sven has that no other cinematographer has, he has this sweetness, this kindness, and he never gets angry. You're never scared when you are with Sven, because whatever, also me as a director, if I choose to do something that might even be stupid, Sven was, oh yes, and then he will, with his camera, make what I said not foolish, but just wonderful. He is true, not only to his own craft, but to everybody he's working with.
He's extremely good for the actors because he supports the actors, and if he takes 2 takes, have 2 takes to choose melon, he takes the which is best acting in. He can see that very well. So he's not trying to force in a aesthetic direction. It is aesthetic, but the most important thing is the actor and the actor's faces.
Johan!
Probably that was one of his gifts. He just had that not normal authority, just an innate authority that made people respect him and be glad to have him as a collaborator, a co-creator, in other words. And that, of course, is a fabulous thing when creating a movie, when the people get together like that. So it's one of the nice chapters of film history, if you want to put